Right, now we'll have a few Bible verses. Starting with, we're doing Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 through 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And verse 25, if we live by the Spirit, let's follow the Spirit.
Tech team, I'm going to use this mic rather than this one, just because this is flopping around a bit. All right. So the Bible verse you heard was the theme of the week. Each week of camp, a different theme is chosen based on a Bible passage. Last year, it was being known by name. And this year, it was this passage from Galatians about fruit of the Spirit. So these kids heard this passage over and over again, and each day we focused on different characteristics of the passage and what it meant to live those out and embody it. So love and peace, self-awareness and self-control, patience and gentleness, kindness and generosity. And as the week went by, we began to kind of refer back to these as touchstones throughout the week and as we talked about things. And there are two stories that I want to share with you that really embodied this passage for me this week. As we moved toward the end of the week, we talked about bringing the fruits of the Spirit back home and back to our communities, back to families and friend groups that hadn't experienced the inclusive nature that these camps allow, the sense of belonging and hospitality and kindness and generosity that each of these kids, we hope, experienced in these camps. And one story I want to tell is about one of the campers that we brought with us. One of the activities that kids get to do during choice time is they get to go tubing. So we are on a very large lake at Insidson. It's a beautiful piece of property. And we are fortunate as a denomination to own a boat. And Randy was one of the boat guys, and he was there all week, and he would endlessly pull kids behind on a tube, not just an inner tube, like a tube. And some of the kids that we brought with us, which Romeo recruited, some of them had never been away from camp. Some of them had never been away from their parents or their mom for a full week. And none of them had been pulled behind an inner tube at very high speed. So they watched the other kids zipping around, and they decided it was not for them. They had a great time swimming in the cove. But as the days went by, they kept noticing everybody keeps signing up for this activity and sort of in competition about who is going to get first dibs. And they kept talking about how they would really like to, but it looked really scary. Finally, on Wednesday, they decided to give it a whirl. And so all 4 of the crew that came got on the boat with a lot of trepidation. And it was a beautiful thing to watch some of the boys, who were some of the very first to sign up every time, offer them tips and encouragement. You don't have to go fast. They gave them if you want to go slower, you go like this. Only if you want to go faster, you go like this. Go like this, and Randy, you'll cut the boat, or even just let go, and you'll be fine. You'll be good. It'll be fine. So they were just faces of dread, but they got out there on the boat. Randy said, the boat puller, with a big face in our debrief after they came back the first time, and signed up every single spot that they could get in for the rest of the time. He said the last time that he pulled one of them around the boat, he could not get that boat to go fast enough for this kid. She just kept going like this. And Randy was, making the boat go right and left so that the tube was swirling back and forth over the waves, and she kept going faster, faster. And the boat was at max capacity. And I just think that that kind of experience in a snapshot is what we offer the youth of our denomination and other youth who go to these camps. The experience of having fear, being worried about fitting in, finding a place for yourself, trying new things, and overcoming fear, and finding just deep joy on the other side of it. The other story I want to share, really about fruits of the Spirit, are the camp leaders who return. So these are almost all campers who have been young people, and they return as youth in their 20s while they're trying to figure out college. They take off a week from their job during the summer or arrange their summer schedules to be able to do this gift. And they show up for these kids. And the transformation that I saw in those young people over the course of the week, who also, as a reminder, all of these folks had their development as young people very challenged from COVID. So these are young people who had 2 years of their experience cut short or truncated, but they are returning to camp as leaders. And the way that they mentor our young people is so beautiful to watch. And the way that they themselves transform and discover things about themselves in their capacity to lead, in their capacity to empathize, in their capacity to make connections for the kids, in their capacity to help kids who are having friendship troubles or troubles fitting in or experiencing some spiritual awakening or struggling with their spirituality, is a beautiful, beautiful gift that is all freely and volunteer given, and is a fruit of the Spirit and a fruit of this conference and investing in our youth. So I asked Romeo if they had a special story to share. Do you have something to share, Romeo? Yeah. And then Robert will finish with a story from his time.
So, like I had said before, the camp is in Idaho. And last year, I was kind of nervous because when I showed up, I realized I was the only Black person there. But this year, I brought my friends with me who are all people of color. So that made me feel a little bit better. But something different about this year too was this counselor. She was really kind, and even though she was mixed, she told me that she had always been the diversity, which was pretty sad. But I was so glad that she had decided to come back, even though, she had probably felt on the outside too, because she just made me feel more comfortable being there. She gave me support that other people couldn't. She related to me. And it's really important to find someone who relates to you, because otherwise you end up feeling like an outsider, like alienated in a place that you want to feel welcome at. That's really hard, but she was really there for me, and she was really sweet. So, yeah.
I'm just getting over a little cold, so forgive me while I blow my nose for a second. It's one of the hazards of working with kids. So, as most of you know, the two camps that our conference owns are Pilgrim Firs in Port Orchard and Ensign in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I started going to Pilgrim Firs in 2011 when I was in 5th grade, and I went back every summer until 2018 when they switched to having official summer camps only at Ensign. Now, I could tell you plenty of stories from my time there. I could tell you about my very first summer when 2 of my fellow campers crashed into each other on the playfield and one had to go to the hospital. I could tell you about the midwinter when the lake froze over and 2 of my friends walked across it in the dark. I could tell you about the innumerable games of cards that I had with my cabin mates over the years and how insanely chaotic they got when we got really far past our bedtimes. But the story I really want to tell you is one of my more recent camp experiences. So my final year at camp was 2018. I wasn't able to come back to council in 2019, and then, of course, I lost my chance in 2020, as did everyone else. But something happened in 2021. Reese, an old friend of mine from camp, reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in returning to Ensign for a sort of retreat with some more old friends. I thought it over for a while, and I said yes. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I'd changed a lot in the 3 years since I'd been at camp, and I knew my camp friends had probably changed too. I wondered if we would all get along as we once did. So Reese and I carpooled to Ensign, and we were the first ones to arrive. I got more nervous waiting for the rest of us to show up, but as they trickled in, Dylan, Athena, Connor, Rachel, Isaac, Emma, and we all greeted each other with big, enthusiastic hugs, I knew I'd made the right choice. We spent the weekend doing all the typical camp stuff, swimming in the lake, eating the excellent camp food. Yes, camp food can be good. Singing our classic songs at the campfire, some of which you've heard here today. And clearing the trails at the behest of our overlord, Mark Boyd. But the highlight of the weekend by far, for me, was on the 3rd night when we were all hanging out on the porch of Spirit Lodge after everyone else had gone to bed. The conversation turned to the events of the last few years, and we all started trauma dumping about everything we'd experienced. I won't share any of the specifics, but as we all shared, everyone was so kind and supportive of each other, and by the end of the night, we all felt a lot better. And after that night, I knew that we had all needed to come back together. So you see, the reason I returned to Pilgrim Firs and later Ensign year after year wasn't for the swimming or the tubing or the arts and crafts or the camp games or other activities, though all those are incredibly good icing on the cake. I returned for the people. Even though I didn't see them for 51 weeks out of the year, every time we got together, it was as though we'd never been apart. They were always just as kind, friendly, funny, and accepting as the last time we were together. One of the common tenets of the United Church of Christ is that God is not just above us, watching over us, but is also within each of us. And when I am with the people of Pilgrim Firs and Ensign, I'm reminded just how true that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert and Romeo, for your stories and your sharing. We, for our hymn, are going to sing another camp song, All God's Creatures Got a Place in the Choir. I will let you know that the camp version of this has some motions and movements, and it's an extended cut. So we are going to probably try and just sing the words that we have, so as not to confuse Frank, who so graciously agreed to do this when I called him last night driving home at about 5 o'clock. So we will do our best to replicate the movements up here. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the image on the front of your bulletin, and for those of you online worship, with the heart is an art activity that the entire camp did. So one of our volunteer crafters came and brought these little tiles and then drew shapes through all of the tiles, and then each camper and leader decorated an individual tile, and then they were put back together at the end of camp with these interlocking hearts. So we have a few of these that got left behind that I thought I would bring and share with some of you, but that's what you're looking at. Thank you, tech team. That's what you're looking at here, is an expression of this beautiful unity and diversity that we experienced at camp. So I'm going to grab the back mic again and hand this to Frank. Thank you. Romeo, are you going to come help us out? I'm just going to be the mic holder because I never quite got these, and you need your hands for this, I think.
Oh yeah, because we got to do the gestures.
Yes. Here, we'll do it like this. Is this gonna work? Yeah.
I think so.
God's creatures got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing high, some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands for applause or anything they got now.
Listen to the bass, it's the one on the bottom where the bullfrog croaks and the hippopotamus moans and groans with a big to-do, and the old cow just goes moo. The dogs and the cats, they take up the middle where the honeybee hums and the cricket fiddles, the donkey brays and the pony neighs, and the old coyote howls.
All God's creatures got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing high, and some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands and pause for anything they got now. Listen
To the top where the little birds sing on the melody, with the high notes ringing up.
the owl hollers over everything, and the jaybird disagrees.
Singing in the nighttime, singing in the day, the little duck quacks, then he's on his way. The possum ain't got much to say, and the porcupine talks to himself.
Here we go.
All God's creators got a place in the choir. Some sing low, some sing high, some sing out loud on the telephone wire. Some just clap their hands and pause for anything they got now. It's a song of living and a song